It's time to welcome the Wine Ladies with Georgia and Suzanne. An entertaining hour topped up with great ideas about wine, where to dine, anything and everything to do with the vine. Great conversation, lots of laughter, guests from all walks of life, food and wine, music, art, sports, and much more, all on the Wine Ladies.
All right, well, we're now back for the second half of the show, and as promised, we're going to be switching gears a little bit here. And now we're going to be talking about Scotch. We've got Sean Kirby from ScotchBlog.ca who's going to be joining us now, and he's brought some fantastic Scotch with him, and we're looking forward to learning how to taste this fabulous beverage properly from you.
Thank you very much for having me. Looking forward to sharing some whiskey and some whiskey knowledge with you.
No, that's great. And when we first met you, and you were saying like, okay, I'm with ScotchBlog.ca, and there's like 7 of you guys that write for that, and I said, wow, like, are there that many people that are like really enthralled with Scotch? It's really growing in popularity? It
is. I mean, interest in Scotch is exploding these days, and it's no longer just old men who enjoy Scotch. It's for
fabulous
everybody.
Women too.
Women, people of all ages. People are discovering how interesting, how fascinating, how delicious Scotch can be. They're learning about the different styles and discovering what they like, and it's becoming a huge growth in.
So how come Scotch and not Irish whiskey or not Canadian whiskey? Why Scotch?
I think because it's with Scotch that you have the most variety of styles, of flavors, of techniques for making it. It's very much like wine in that way, in that you have different varieties of malt that go into the whiskey, different techniques for aging it, different types of barrels. So at the end you have a huge range of different styles of whiskey that you can compare and contrast and enjoy.
Okay, so there's like 5 categories of Scotch or something, is that right? Is that how it works?
Well, there's 7 regions of Scotch. In Scotland, there are 7 regions where Scotch is made. You have Highland and Lowland, Speyside, Islay, and it goes on from there. And each region has distinctive styles, distinctive characteristics in the whiskey. For instance, an Islay Scotch, it tends to be very salty, very peaty, very bold flavor. A Speyside whiskey tends to be a little bit more subtle, more fruity, a little more floral. And so I think people really enjoy comparing and discovering what style of whiskey suits them.
How many producers are there in Scotland approximately?
Oh, there are literally hundreds of distilleries all over Scotland. Ironically, the Speyside region is one of the smallest regions, but it has the most distilleries in it. Whereas the Highland region, which is another one we're going to try out here today, is the largest, geographically the largest, but doesn't have as many distilleries in it.
Okay. And is all Scotch whiskey, but not all whiskey Scotch? Is that how it works, or that's not true either?
Yes. So Scotch whiskey is basically whiskey from Scotland. That's the basic,
easy to remember.
Simple, right? Now, by law and tradition, there are certain rules that have to be observed in making Scotch whiskey. It has to be made. For instance, if it's a single malt whiskey, which is what we're going to be trying here, it has to be made from a single type of malted barley. It also has to be aged in a cask for at least 3 years to be called Scotch. These are rules that have been put in place in Scotland to ensure the quality of the product that it represents around the world, that people associate Scotch with the best whiskey in the world.
Okay, so other whiskeys, like an Irish whiskey, doesn't necessarily have to be aged for 3 years, or maybe it has different rules, I guess.
It may. I'm not sure, but certainly each country has certain rules that they keep in place to make sure that the quality of the product is there. Just like with other culturally associated products like wine and cheeses and things. If it comes from a place and it bears the name, it has to be up to the standards of quality. Not to say that whiskeys from other parts of the world are not good. Irish whiskey, American whiskey,
they're all good in
delicious.
Their different ways.
And there's even a lot of very interesting whiskeys being produced in Japan, and recently India has come out with some single malt whiskeys that are very nice.
Now, how did you get interested in Scotch?
I just kind of stumbled upon it, I would say.
Like all good things in life.
It started out as just a way for me and a few friends to relax after a workday. We would get together and we would have a nice single malt whiskey. After trying a few different whiskeys, we realized there's a whole world here to discover.
Are these the other bloggers?
These are the other bloggers,
Oh,
yes. So
okay.
before we were blogging together, we were drinking and discovering Scotch, and
Okay.
soon
How fun.
enough, we tried so many whiskeys and we gained such an interest that we thought we should share our passion with other people, and we started our blog.
I like your blog, actually. It's
very
lots of fun. There's lots of good information on there.
Yeah,
you have like the latest releases also that are coming out in the LCBO, and
Yeah, we
right?
try to keep people up to date on the latest whiskeys that are coming out, and particularly people in the Toronto area and people in Ontario who shop through the LCBO, and we try to target a local audience and keep them apprised of what's available, where the best values are, new things that people should try.
Now,
Okay.
what did you think of that dinner last Thursday night with Highland Park Thor? Wasn't that incredible?
It was fantastic. I thought the pairing of the whiskey and the food was inspired. The chef did an amazing job of choosing flavors and textures that really made the best of the whiskey.
And he also infused, right? He did a couple. Remember, he did a couple that were just paired with whiskey.
He did.
And then there were a couple of courses that were infused with the whiskey as well, and then paired with the same
And this
whiskey.
is becoming a growing trend in cooking to use whiskey in cooking different meats and sauces, giving that flavors of whiskey that can only really be found in a good Scotch and putting them into the food.
Right.
You should have seen us all. We were wearing these Viking helmets and swords and original swords too.
Yes.
They were.
Yikes. Okay, let's find out. Like, I know that you've got this whole great thing on the website, like, or on your blog, about how there's so many different steps, like how to nose it, how to swirl it, all these great things
So
to
we're
get
gonna
the
learn how
most
to
out
do
of
that.
your glass. Yeah. So
Okay.
where do we start?
Let's get
And
started.
which one are we
Okay.
going to start with?
First of all, we're going to dive into the Highland Park 12. This is the youngest expression from Highland Park. So it's a good Scotch to try before you want to maybe commit to buying a 15 or an
$250
18-year-old bottle. The 12-year-old Highland Park is an excellent whiskey, and it's a great example of the Highland style. So let's give it a try.
Okay. So, and what were you saying, like, for this region, for the Highlands, like what characterizes those typically?
Highland whiskeys tend to be fairly bold, with a strong smoky flavor, as well. Typically, they are peated whiskey as well, so you get that peaty flavor in them. Not perhaps as bold and aggressive as an Islay Scotch, which has that strong, salty kind of sea air type aroma to it.
Okay.
More floral than those. But smoky, peaty, those are the kinds of characteristics you find in a Highland
How
Scotch.
would you say, okay, peaty? Like, do you know, when I think of peaty, I don't really know, like
mossy.
like
Earthy,
earthy,
you know?
earthy, like
Yeah.
from the ground, kind
Like
of.
peat
Exactly.
moss.
Like-
You know, when
Oh.
you're gardening. Is that what you mean?
Exactly.
I never garden, so that's why I
when we
wouldn't
say
know that.
peated,
Something I know over you. Amazing.
when we talk about a peated whiskey, what that means is that once the barley has been malted, they take the barley and it has to be dried. Now, there's different ways to do that. To make a peated whiskey, you take that barley and you burn peat that you've cut out of the ground, big blocks of vegetable matter from the ground. That's what the peat is. And you burn that, and the smoke from the peat dries the barley and infuses it with that peat flavor.
I see.
So this is something that some whiskeys do and some do not. And so some people prefer a peated whiskey.
And this is a characteristic of the Highland
This is
area.
something that's done in many areas, but it's very common, very characteristic of a Highland Scotch to be peated. Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
So we're
And
gonna
these are special glasses?
Fill a couple of glasses.
Scotch glasses?
These are called a Glencairn glass or a tulip glass because of the shape. The bulb shape of the glass contains all the aroma of the whiskey. So as you drink and as it kind of swirls around, the aromas stay there, and then because it's got this shape on the rim, it allows you to deliver the Scotch right to the tip of your tongue, so you can taste it from each part of the mouth.
Very much like wine.
Yeah.
Very much so.
Yes.
Yeah. So pour a little dram for each of us here.
All right.
And just a wee bit.
Whoa, that's a lot.
We can
Yikes.
share that one. Don't want to waste
now,
it.
what-
Okay, that's good.
Don't be such a chicken. Who's driving? Oh, you're driving. That's right.
Not for a while, but still.
So is that like a standard pour? Like what? Like when somebody's drinking it neat, do you usually give about like an ounce and a half, or is there sort of
You
like
can vary it. I
Yeah.
mean, you probably don't want to go any more than an ounce and a half at
Yeah.
a time. I mean, this is a strong whiskey, but
right?
Yeah,
40
but-
proof.
Okay.
So the glass will allow you to see the color. So you want to pick that up. Maybe I'm going to use a slightly different style of glass
Okay.
here, but still very suitable. So you can see the color, and by running the whiskey around the rim, it allows you to watch how the whiskey falls down the side of the glass and
Right.
gives you a
Like
sense of
legs,
how
like-
the thickness, the
Yeah.
viscosity of the whiskey, whether it's a thin, runny, or whether it's kind of thick and syrupy.
Okay. This looks like it's kind of got some pretty good legs, like,
Absolutely.
you know, yeah. So this
Yeah.
would consider to have pretty good viscosity, like
Yeah,
pretty good.
exactly.
Okay. Yeah.
So we don't want to swirl it too much. This is a mistake you often see that people
swirling.
with they have the big brandy glass and they're just swirling around. All you're really doing there is releasing the alcohol vapors out of the whiskey. And when you take that to your nose, you're just going to get hit with a big shot of that
So don't
alcohol
do
vapor,
that.
and it's going to overpower the flavor. So
Okay.
you can gently swirl it a little
All
bit
right.
just to open it up, but
Yeah.
not too much.
Okay.
And then
So
you
adding a little bit of oxygen.
exactly aerating it just like you would with a fine wine.
Okay. We don't have any music. You said that, you know, sometimes it's good to have music when you're I can sing. There you go. Well, on
nice.
second thought, no, just kidding. Carry on. Just kidding.
What I'd like to do here is let's take it to our nose, and you
Okay.
can kind of go to just maybe one side at first, just to
But you mean only use
Open
one
up one
nostril?
nostril?
Or?
yeah, tilt it back and forth. Let all the aromas sink in there, and then just kind of consider it. See
Okay.
what sense you're getting from the nose, and
Is
then
this that three-prong thing that you had? There's three approaches or
there's
something?
a few steps to it here.
Third nostril.
So once you've had a good nose of it, you can smell that smoke probably immediately. A bit of a caramel flavor as well.
Yeah.
And go in
See,
for
I'm
it.
instinctively swirling. Bad, Georgia. Don't do that.
It's many
We'll go in
years
for a
of a
sip.
bad habit.
So
Cheers.
Solange.
Solange?
Solange is what they say in Scotland. It's
Solange?
the Gaelic
okay.
Solange.
expression. Just cheers.
Cheers.
To your
Okay.
health.
Cheers.
Okay,
And
cheers.
cheers to your trip to Scotland. We understand you're going shortly.
Indeed, I will be in Scotland in May to visit the Speyside Spring Whisky Festival, one of the biggest whiskey events in Scotland. It's going to be very exciting. We're going to travel to a few distilleries and get to hopefully sample some of the whiskey straight from.
So you'll be doing a
from
lot
the
of
source.
blogging,
Wow.
I'm sure, from there.
Absolutely. There's going to be all kinds of pictures and articles on the site about our
Awesome.
adventures on the whiskey trail in Scotland.
No, we look forward to that. No, that's nice. It's very.
Are we allowed to drink now?
I guess I jumped the gun.
Please.
I already tasted. Yeah.
So everybody is a little different in how they taste it, but you're certainly going to get that smoky, peaty flavor right
Yeah.
away.
I definitely get that peaty flavor. You know what? Especially like on the tip of my tongue for some reason.
Wow.
It's like really hanging out there. That
Absolutely.
peaty flavor.
That's delicious.
It is good though. Yeah.
You definitely know you're drinking something special.
Absolutely. There's a complexity to this that is so far beyond.
Am I holding it
simple.
correctly, or should you be holding it by the bowl?
You can,
I know in
you can
wine you're not
do it
supposed to
different
do that.
ways. If I may, for a moment
Sure,
here.
yeah.
Sometimes warming the scotch helps to improve the flavor as well, to open up the flavor. So you can just
Okay.
kind of cup it in your hand like so, and just let the warmth of your hand actually warm the scotch.
Okay.
This is one of the reasons I don't suggest putting ice in a good scotch.
Uh-huh.
That will chill it down and immediately close it up, and
Right.
you'll lose a lot of the flavor.
Now you did request that we have a little bit of water here and a straw.
I did.
So you said
because
no ice, but
There's
What's
the
the straw
traditional
in the water
approach
for?
to drinking scotch in Scotland is to add a little bit of water, because
Okay.
just a small amount of water, a very small amount of water, can actually dramatically change the flavor of the whiskey. It opens it up. It allows you to sense and taste more flavors and aromas that might not otherwise be there. So
Okay.
the best way to do this, I like to use a little straw here, because we really don't want to drown the whiskey. We want to add just a couple of drops. So
Okay.
we're just going to carefully
two.
Okay.
add a little water here.
Yeah, that was
Now you can give
two
it-
drops.
And that makes a difference, huh?
Give it a little swirl
Wow.
and try it again and tell
Swirl,
me.
Okay. Okay.
Swirl a little bit.
Okay, not too much. Okay.
Have some for myself as well.
Yeah.
Now you should find that it opens up the whiskey a little bit.
Yeah,
Makes the
I
flavors-
noticed the difference. They're more alive, actually, kind of.
Exactly.
Yeah, and there's
Why
more of
is
a
that?
floral there
Why
now.
does that happen like that?
Well, there's so much flavor in the whiskey that sometimes when you're tasting it, it's too much all at once. Your mouth and your sense of smell is trying to process all of these flavors at once. So adding a little bit of water dilutes it a little bit and allows you to separate the flavors a little bit and identify it a little differently.
Okay, very nice. And how much does this cost? This Highland. This is the 12-year age.
This is the 12-year-old,
yeah.
and this is just under $60. It's $59 and change at the LCBO typically, which makes it very affordable as far as a single malt whiskey goes.
Okay.
It's a very good value for a single malt.
Now, when you talk premium, like when people talk about like a premium Scotch whiskey, is there what dictates whether it's premium or not, and around what price point do you usually have to get into to be buying a premium Scotch?
Well, that's a relative word, of course. I mean, anything could be considered a premium. Even a whiskey like this, I would consider a premium whiskey in some sense. But certainly, age is a factor.
Okay.
Age is a prominent factor because it's something visible. When you look at the bottle, you see, oh, this one is 18 or 21 years old.
Right.
And that tends to suggest that it's better. Not always the case. One whiskey that's 12 years old could be better than one that's 15. One that's 15 could be superior to one that's 18. But but age is a guideline that you can use.
And does it say on the bottle whether it was malt or malted barley or like what grain was used or anything like that?
Well, this is where you have to sort of understand a bit of the terminology. So when you see a whiskey that says single malt Scotch, you know that it's made with only malted barley.
Which is a good thing.
Which is a good thing. Most whiskey drinkers consider a single malt whiskey to be the best choice available, the best there is.
Now the other one that you brought is another single malt.
I did.
And what part of Scotland is this one from?
So this is a Speyside malt. So as I said, the Speyside region it's quite small. It's in the northwest part of Scotland, but it actually has the most distilleries of any region in Scotland. There are dozens and dozens of distilleries in this one area.
Why is that?
There's a number of reasons. It's by history and tradition. It's been a place that's been great for making whiskey. The River Spey, from which Speyside gets its name, runs through that area, and the waters of this River Spey are considered very clear and very pure, which is very important when you're running a distillery. If you look at any distillery, you'll see that the first and most important thing is that they're right next to a source of water, right beside a river. So let's open this up. And as you can see, just to compare the color, you'll see that
big difference.
very light color. This is a very subtle, floral, aromatic Scotch. It has notes of grass and heather and a little bit of spice, but very subtle, very elegant, very typical of the Speyside region. Not too heavy, not heavily peated, not salty like an Islay, but a little bit more rounded and subtle with its floral notes.
Now this one is very interesting. It has a vintage to it.
That's right. So
what is that all about?
This is a Cragganmore, which is a very well-known Speyside distillery. But this bottle actually came from Signatory Vintages. So it's an independent bottler. So an independent bottler is a group that will go to these different distilleries and try the whiskeys from the barrel and decide which ones are the best, have unique characteristics that they really like. And they'll buy the whole barrel, and they'll take it and they'll bottle it and sell it independently. So instead of getting a 12-year-old whiskey, you get a whiskey vintage 1997, for instance, as this one
I've
is.
never seen that before.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Some of the best whiskeys out there are often through these independent bottlers because whereas
how did you get your hands on that one?
It took some doing, let me tell you.
It
takes some time to get a case of whiskeys like this imported. It's not simple, but it's worth the effort.
And how much does that sell for?
I don't recall, but it's probably around $80 or $90 for this bottle.
Now, how many bottles of Scotch do you have at home? Now I'm curious about
probably about 10 or 12. All at varying levels. Some of them just have a few.
You're going to be replenishing, I'm sure, on your trip to Scotland.
Certainly, yes.
Make sure you check his baggage.
So So Suzanne, maybe I should. Why don't we blend these two? Oh,
Okay.
we're blending. Okay, so we'll blend our two Scotch, and then maybe we can.
Got a couple. We can use these
Oh, you
glasses
can.
as
Okay,
well.
all right. Because then we can also. We could have compared anyways. Okay, so let's
But
do
don't
that.
pour so much, just a little bit. We don't
Okay.
want you to waste it.
Especially since your special vintage.
Actually, you know
bottle,
what?
right?
We can share with sisters.
Okay.
We'll do
perfect.
that. We don't want you to waste
So
it.
when you think of that fantastic meal that we had at Colburn Lane, do you remember of the courses that we had? Is there one course in particular that like you think would go really well with this Scotch?
Well, that was a great meal, and as the chef told us, he was drawing his inspiration from Scandinavian and sort of Nordic style cooking, which
Yes.
is actually making a big
Come back?
come back, if you will.
Yeah.
These days, it's very sort of rustic, simple, hearty food,
Mm-hmm.
and I thought the first course that blended
The
wheat berries,
Yeah, the wheat berries, yes.
and
They had the ginger on
nice
it.
Yeah, that was
ginger
delicious.
and a goat cheese.
Yeah.
Paired perfectly with the 12-year-old Highland Park.
Okay. Yeah, that was wonderful.
So why don't you give that one a try?
You're smiling
And
again.
tell me
Oh my God.
what you
Bad
think.
wine lady.
Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
Here, I'll try it first.
So there should be a big difference. I mean, this is like, first of all, price-wise, it's like 30% more expensive. First thing. I mean, that is not
are-
always a great indicator, but
These are very distinctively different styles of Scotch. So we have a classic Highland with its smoky, peaty flavor,
Right.
and a classic Speyside with its subtle, grassy and floral aromas.
Okay.
Big finish. Wow.
Yes, long
Ooh.
finish.
Wow.
let's try.
It just keeps on going, doesn't it?
It's like the rolling hills of Scotland. They go on and on and on. Do you see? I
Wow.
still have it in my
Wow.
throat and in my.
That just warms everything up. Oh my God.
We
it's
need
like,
a nice
whoa, wow.
fireplace to sit
Absolutely.
beside.
That's amazing. Oh, and then it just, you're right, it just stays on the tongue like it's still there.
I'll probably be
Big
here
time.
till
Wow.
8 o'clock tonight.
Holy smokes. It's not as smoky either.
Definitely
That's
not.
definitely a difference, I would say. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very nice. I like that one. I like the other one too, but I think this is more my style.
Yeah.
It seems lighter I mean, that sounds like an oxymoron, like it's heavier and I mean, the finish stays longer and everything, but it's lighter
Yes,
in a way.
definitely.
It's like a brighter kind of Scotch, I guess.
There you
Wow,
go. You're
so
becoming
cool.
a whiskey expert already.
All right. I learned how to not smoke a cigar. I learned how to roll a cigar in the first segment, and now I'm becoming a whiskey aficionado.
Oh, that was neat, huh?
That was really
Very cool.
Yeah,
Very cool.
yeah, excellent.
Well, Sean, thanks for coming in so much. It
Thanks
was
so
such a
much.
pleasure to meet you and your buddies last week.
My pleasure.
And we look forward to reading all about your adventures in Scotland in the next couple of weeks.
Great.
And I learned a lot today.
Yeah. So you know what? I learned I like Scotch. Thanks. Sure. Now there's another liqueur that I like. That was great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in, everyone. Next week, actually, we're going to be talking to Michael Potters from Hockley Valley Resort. So that they have completely renovated that
Yes.
resort. They've got some fabulous new restaurants there, and the rooms are beautiful. They've got even a ski hill there.
They do a ski hill and a fantastic spa.
So we're going to be talking to those folks. So make sure you tune in next week as well. Have a great week. You've been watching The Wine Ladies on thatchannel.com. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Cheers.
Cheers. How do you say it again?
Solange.
Solange.